MC Gainey on the Fishbowl. Welcome.
Proud to be here, and let me start out by sending my sympathies to the Steeler fans, of which I am one, of last weekend's outrageous robbery by the officials in that sham Jacksonville game.
Well, thank you very much. I know me and on behalf of Pittsburgh, we really appreciate that. We love our sports.
Listen, I love the Steelers. The Steelers historically through the years, and I love the team now. And the officiating in that was atrocious, absolutely atrocious. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Everybody's talking about
yeah.
how great Jacksonville defense is. We scored 42 points on them, babe. We put 42 points on them, so they're not all that. Because I really root for whoever's playing the Patriots every week. I loathe the Patriots.
Ah, yes, our arch enemies, them and the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, at least the Ravens don't spy on you in your camp, and they don't deflate the balls, and you know what I'm saying.
Right,
At
right,
least
right.
on the they play it straight up. But at any rate, you probably did not call to talk about football, Sam. What you got on your mind today? What are we talking about?
All right. Well, first off, thank you for the Steelers intro. Now, I'd like to reciprocate by saying happy almost birthday.
Well, thank you very much, my friend. Yes, I'm going to be turning 70 in a few days. If the celebration doesn't finish me off before I actually get to the wire, it's like I always laugh at people that have multiple. I have friends that have birthday months and things, and I always think that's really funny because I never put that much stock in it. But somehow the number 70, has brought out a round of celebrations that may finish me off. But thank you, Sam. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. If it's any consolation, I'm actually having a big birthday this year as well. It's number 30, so uh, you got
I
you got a
remember
good couple
well.
years on me, but
I remember
it's definitely
my 30th birthday was a beautiful thing. I had just been in Hollywood for a couple of years, and I was thriving. I was loving it. I was having a lot of fun when I was 30. I hope you do too, Sam.
definitely. I'm already having a blast, so
Good.
I can't wait to see what lies ahead.
Never defer the good times, my friend, because there's no guarantee they're going to fucking be there, right? So take them when you can take them, man.
Exactly, exactly. Um, well, my first question for you is, what got you interested in film?
In film, my interest in film directly comes from my interest in acting. And my interest in acting came from, from childhood. When I was a kid, my parents were divorced a couple of times, and well, both of them were married 4 times, but not all to each other. But during one of the divorces, I went to visit my father, and he taught me this Irish ditty, sort of a scatological little tune about a billboard, and the weather had washed it off, and the message that was left behind was risque. And I came back home and sang that for my mother, and she was horrified. She made me sit down and memorize Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Now I was about 7 years old. And once they remarried, they would bring me out to entertain their friends at parties in the home there, and I would sing the song and then recite Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. And I began to realize that people really enjoyed seeing a little kid recite things. So I began to memorize all kinds of things. So now I was like this little show-off, always reciting things. I memorized all kinds of things. And then I was a folk singer for a while. And when I got out of the Army in 1970 and went back to college, I fell in with some people in the theater department, and I stuck my toe in that pool. And I said, wow, I really love this life. I love the theatrical life. And so I followed it, and it was my ticket to get the hell out of the sunburned hell of redneck Mississippi. No way to be a professional actor in Mississippi. Couldn't be done. No theater there, no movies, nothing. So I followed it to San Francisco, New Orleans, and then San Francisco. And I went to acting school in San Francisco for 3 years. And then the next logical step was either go to New York and be a theatrical actor or go to Hollywood and be in the movies. So I thought, what the hell? I'd rather live in Hollywood. I like New York, but I don't want to live there. I actually made that saying up, Sam. Not many people know that. Fine place to visit. Don't want to live there. So I decided to move to Hollywood, and I was a movie fan. I grew up on John Wayne and Humphrey Bogart and these guys. So it seemed quite natural for me to come to Hollywood. And when I got there, they looked at my resume, which by the time I got to Hollywood in '77, I'd been acting for 5 years. And they looked at my resume and they said, "Oh, look, you've done Shaw, Shakespeare, Williams, Chekhov, O'Neill. Well, you've certainly done a lot of work. Give him a gun." And so they took one look at my face and said, "Dude, you're a murderous bastard, a goon, a thug. If you're a cop, you're a crooked cop, trigger happy." And I was okay with that. I was ready to be whatever they needed me to be. And so that's my interest in film. I wound up in Hollywood, and that's what they do here.
That's awesome, and I think that's also a great segue into the first film I'd like to talk about, which is Con Air.
Oh, yes. Yes, Con Air. My wife says there should be a Con Air channel that runs it around the clock because it's probably played. It's like Cool Hand Luke or, one of those that they play it so much, so many times over and over and over again, generation after generation. And for me, it was a big turning point because I was still trying to figure out how to do what I wanted to do in films, as opposed to it might not necessarily have been what they wanted me to do. And when I did Con Air, I had just done a movie called Breakdown immediately before. I flew from the set of Breakdown to the set of Con Air in pre-production. And in Breakdown, I was a murderous, psychopathic killer, merciless, and, like the shark in Jaws. And when I got to Con Air, there were so many people in that cast, and everybody was a badass. I mean, there were fucking cannibals and psychopaths and rapists and just an incredible basket of deplorables, if you will. And I was on what's called a buyout, which meant I was paid one price to do the whole movie and was not going to get any overtime. And so when we were in the pre-production camp, everybody was picking their costumes, getting their costumes, choosing what tattoos they wanted. And my friends were all getting these giant swastikas and lions and leopards. And I was like, fuck this. I'm not going to sit in the makeup chair for 2 hours every day without getting paid for it just to get some badass tattoo. So I said, give me a marijuana leaf on the back of my hand. And that led me down the road to discover who my character was actually going to be. And for me at that point, actually being able to decide for myself and get away with it was a major challenge. So we had the first scene I was in, we were getting off a bus and we were all in chains and I saw the plane. And I'm looking at that plane like a hungry man looks at a hamburger. And the director asked me, what are you doing? What's going on with you? And I said, well, what's going on with my character, Swamp Thing, is all he's ever done in his life is fly. When he was a kid, he made model airplanes. When he flew, when he could get in a plane and take lessons, he did. When he was in the military, he flew. When he got out, he flew in the oil fields. When the oil business dried up, he flew marijuana. When that wasn't lucrative enough, he flew cocaine. That's all he's ever done is fly. And he's been locked in a cage like a bird for years, and now he's going to fly the fucking plane. He doesn't care about getting away. He's not trying to fly to Mexico, so he wants to fly the fucking plane. That's it. And the director said, that's fabulous. Go with that. God, Simon West, I'll love him for the rest of my life. He said, go with that. So as a consequence, I could put my real plan into motion, which was, I don't know if you've ever seen a film called Kelly's Heroes.
Yes, that's a
Clint
great
Eastwood,
movie.
World War II film. There are a bunch of American soldiers get behind the enemy lines. They're going to rob a bank and steal all the gold bars. Anyway, in this whole thing, Donald Sutherland is in this movie, and he plays this goofy character named Oddball, who has a beard and sounds like he's stoned all the time, and he's just like a different character than everybody else in the movie. And as sort of a tribute to him, I wanted to make Swamp Thing different. So Swamp Thing is not a guy who ever gets in anybody's face, never shoots anybody, never punches anybody, never does anything except fucking laugh and joke and have a good time. And that's what I wanted to do. And so whenever there was a gunfight in the movie, I would mention to Simon, I would say, Swamp Thing would be on the plane. He's not out here. He'd say, you're absolutely right. MC's wrapped. He can go back to the hotel and lay out by the pool while we all shoot each other and blow each other up all day long. So that's what I did. I avoided all the unpleasantness. And at one point, after one of their gun battles, I found an army helmet laying on the ground because you had soldiers fighting convicts. It was like big gunfights everywhere, armies of people. I took this helmet and stuck it under the seat in the plane. So when we got ready to land the plane, or as I say, crash, I pulled the helmet out and put it on my head. I mean, it's like I just was a goofy fuck. And it was very satisfying because I was ready to not be a murderous macho asshole in one movie. I was ready for a break from that. And all of this enabled me to realize that it was up to me to do what I wanted to do, even if I was a bad guy. Even if I was a convict flying the plane, that didn't mean I had to be an unpleasant guy. I could laugh and joke all the way through it, and so for me, it was a turning point in my career and in my technique of how to get away with doing what I want to do in films. And the popularity of it was enormous. I mean, it's the biggest production I had ever been in before or since. We had hundreds of people. We had a second aerial unit. And I wanted to be believable as a pilot, as knowing what I was doing, not just somebody who could maybe fly. So I approached the pilots. Aren't you glad? Am I the easiest interview you've ever done? Look, as you ask one fucking question and I talk for 30 minutes. So I'm sorry, Sam, but this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. Con
No,
Air.
this is great. This is great.
All right, you sit back, put your feet up, and I'll finish telling you about Con Air. When I was a kid, there was a TV show called Sky King, and every week he flew along in his plane and he solved crimes in the West in his fucking plane. But whenever you saw him, it looked like he was driving to the store in a car. He'd look out the window like he was, parked in the parking lot. I didn't want people to come up to me the rest of my life and say, "You look so phony flying it." So I went to the pilots on the aerial unit. I said, "Is it possible for one guy to fly this plane?" They said, "Yeah, but he'd have to be pretty good." I said, "Okay, will you show me how to do that?" And they said, "Well, I don't know. Well, buy us a drink." So I spent a significant amount of time buying drinks for these fucking pilots on the aerial unit because I told them I don't ever want people coming up and saying you look phony. So they told me and showed me what kind of maneuvers, what kind of manipulation I would have to do to be believable as flying the plane. And as a consequence, I'm really proud of how I flew the fucking plane, and I'm really proud of how the character came off, and I survived it. I did not die. And my only regret about the whole thing is that they did not use my last line that I improvised when after the plane crash, after the fire engine and all the shit, and I'm laying on the ground and Cusack comes up and stands over me. I improvised the line, "Just my fucking luck. I get arrested by a cop wearing sandals." And everybody thought that was a really funny line, but it didn't make the movie because at that point in the movie, they're just trying to get Nicolas Cage back with his wife and his kid and yada, yada, yada. It goes on. But for me, my friends on that movie, and it was a great thing, like Cool Hand Luke, a great thing to be in a group of actors that you're always competing with for bad guy roles, and now you're all working together in the same movie.
Right.
It was like a jailbreak for us. I mean, we had a fucking ball. It was wild and rowdy as shit when we weren't on the set. And we shot a lot of it. We shot in a little border town on between the Utah and Nevada line. I'm blanking on the name of it right now, but it'll come to me. But the Utah side didn't have any booze, didn't have anything. The Nevada side of town had one strip club. And the first night we were in there in that town, we all checked into the hotel and went to the strip club to start drinking. They had 3 strippers. The next night they had 10. The next night they had 15 because the word went out to the capital of strippers in Western America, which is ironically Salt Lake City, Utah. That hey, we got 300 guys up here in Wendover, Nevada, and they all want to drink and look at naked women. And so we turned Wendover, Nevada into a party town, tore it down, had a fucking ball. My friends kept saying, man, you have fucked up now because you're not doing any of this stuff we're doing. Nobody's even going to see you in this movie. And I said, have you ever seen a movie that takes place on a plane? They have to keep cutting back to the cockpit or else you'll forget that it's a fucking plane. You'll think they're on a train or something. And sure enough, I got more camera time than I needed, and it was the right kind. And it was a great experience all the way around. I made some great friends that have gone on to become big stars, like Danny Trejo, who was he was a Mexican convict, baby. I mean, literally, in real life too. It was like that movie turned it around for him. And Steve Buscemi, and a lot of people came out of that, and all the way through, I was having so much fun acting with Nick and Cage. Cage was fun to be around, but nothing compared to the fucking villain,
John Malkovich.
Malkovich bitched and moaned and pissed and moaned all the way through that movie about what a piece of shit it was. Oh my God, I can't believe we have to do this. Can't believe. And when I saw the movie, he stole the fucking movie. It was incredible. One of the great performances of the modern era is him as that fucking character.
Right, right.
You know, so it was everything about the movie was great. Great, wonderful working for Bruckheimer. I mean, it was a fucking party. It was a fucking party, and I think the movie captures that to a great degree. And now my fantasy is to do Con Air 2 with me and Nick Cage and the Country Bears instead of convicts. The plane's filled with the Country Bears have all gone rogue, and now they're taking them to prison. You like that idea, Sam?
I do, and I'll tell you what. I went to school for screenwriting, so I probably could cook something up.
Yeah, good luck with that. You got to pry the Country Bears away from Disney.
Right,
and you
right.
Got to get Nick Cage to agree to put that fucking weave back in his hair and get in that kind of shape again.
Right.
You got your work out for you with that one. But yeah, that's my fantasy. But that's pretty much what I have to say about Con Air, unless you have some questions about it.
No, that pretty much covers that. Ironically, the second film I wanted to talk about was Breakdown.
Yeah.
Like that's a great movie. Like Con Air and Breakdown are probably two of like my top favorite movies with you.
You can imagine what it was like doing them back to back, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And both of them have significant. We shot a lot, most of Breakdown in and around Vegas, and we shot a lot of Con Air in and around Vegas. So that was, I spent a spring and a summer in Las Vegas, and it was a trip. Breakdown. Wonderful script, incredible script by Jonathan Mostow, who directed. And it was just, I think it's maybe one of the best directed pictures I've ever been in. I mean, it's amazing. I really hate those movies where Joe Schmuck is just a guy and he finds himself like in Die Hard. He finds himself in a bad situation and he knows all this shit to do. All of a sudden he becomes like Liam Neeson does now. He becomes,
right.
And I'm not trashing them. I'm just saying they become these. Well, Kurt Russell was really great at not doing that. He was just a guy who's trying to this, try that, no plan, just try this, try that, trying to get his wife back. And I thought it was an amazing performance on his part. And the late great J.T. Walsh was sensational. Oh my God! But it was the opposite experience for me of Con Air. It was a small cast. Kurt got to fly home every night. The producer told him to get him in the movie. He told him because Kurt had just done 14 weeks of night shoots on Escape from L.A. He was not interested on being on location. He wanted to be with Goldie, and who can blame him, right?
Right.
What's his wife's name, right? Goldie
Yeah,
Hawn?
Goldie Hawn, yeah.
The producer said, "Listen, we'll pick you up in a car at the Malibu airstrip, and we're shooting right over here. And we'll fly you in on my private plane every day." So he had the late call every day, and he went home every night, and there was very few people to hang out with and have fun with on that in that situation. And I was starving to death too. By the way, I mean I was 220 pounds, and I wore a long sleeve shirt in the desert, and so I was angry and hungry and frustrated, and I had a lot of really poisonous shit going on in my heart and soul, and it came out in that character, and I did it purposely, and it worked. But I was glad when we finished that movie, and that's why Con Air was so great. I mean, when I walked into the Con Air camp the first day, the preseason camp, the first thing I heard were blenders going. I heard people laughing and making margaritas, and I was like, oh my God, So Breakdown was the perfect warm up for the good time to be had on Con Air. But Breakdown was a serious piece of business, man. I'm telling you. I think we spent 3 weeks in a pickup truck with me holding him prisoner and then him holding me prisoner. And we were working in the Valley of Fire, which is like 120 degrees. It's right outside of Vegas, a half hour outside of Vegas. And it was fucking brutal. It was absolutely brutal, but what a great movie. I mean, I'm really proud of that movie.
It's again, like, I have to say, like, Breakdown and Con Air are like my two top favorite films of yours. Like, they're just
Yeah.
so good, and Breakdown, like you said, is just it's a really intense thriller. And I also really like, I was just talking about this with my dad, about what you just said about Kurt Russell's character in that
Yeah.
film, how like he is just an average Joe guy that doesn't know
Yeah.
what to do, and he's pushed to the limit to get his wife back, and it's a fantastic film.
Yeah, I agree. A whole.
Phones are still dropping out, baby.
Yeah, and you know what? Now that I look back on it, for me, when we made that, I'm not even sure if I had a cell phone. I'm technologically challenged here. I'm way behind the curve always on this shit. And every time I would see that no service on the phone in the movie, I was like, holy mackerel. God, that really happens to people. And now that I've had cell phones, I know that when it says no service, you better not be in the fucking desert broken down somewhere with J.T. Walsh hanging around, man.
Right, right,
That's two words you never want to see.
right.
No service. Oh, my God. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's when. Now, when you say you're talking about favorite movies of mine, have you seen a lot of them? Have you ever seen, I'm going to bring up some of my favorites. Have you ever seen Club Dread?
Yes, that's actually on the list that I wanted to talk about. The three films you did with Broken Lizard, which was Club Dread, Dukes of Hazzard, and Beer Fest. Now I have to
And,
say, out of the
and
three,
makers and baby makers.
right, and Baby Makers, right, right. Um, but I have to say, Club Dread is my favorite that you've done with those guys. That film,
Yeah,
that's
Club Dread is one of my three favorite films I've ever done anywhere. For a variety of reasons, one of which was I was on my honeymoon with my beautiful bride, and we shot it in Mexico at a resort in the off season. So we had the whole resort to ourselves, and it was in a fabulous resort, one that is really ecologically profound and not filled with American tourists. No casino and none of that shit going on. It's a great resort, and it was a great place to honeymoon. And I loved working with the lizards. And in making that film, I met one of the best, somebody who would go on to be one of my best friends I ever had, was the late great Bill Paxton, who, it was a life-changing job. And many of them are not. I'm always going to have a good time. That's Gainey's code, baby. Nobody's going to stop me from having a good time. I had a good time doing prison movies. I had a good time. I'm going to have a good time. but it was so easy on that. And it was the only time I ever had the old school experience of going on location where everybody eats together at night. We had a table. We would all sit outside at night after we finished work, and we would all eat, the whole cast. And you know, that's a bonding experience that you just don't get on movies. Usually everybody's at a hotel, they go to their hotel room, they do whatever they do. You might socialize once in a while, but we were all in a beautiful jungle location. And we would, at wrap, we would all run down and dive in the ocean and swim out with a couple of beers in our hands and swim out past the surf break and just tread water and shoot the shit and talk. You know, I mean, it's just a remarkable experience making that film. And it brought me into the world of the lizards, which is a beautiful world to be in, and gave me some great friends. So it was a life-changing experience in a movie that only real film fans ever see it. You know, the world's full of people that never saw any of the Broken Lizard movies, and they don't know what they missed.
Exactly.
Those guys, they're a fucking hoot, aren't they?
They're hysterical. Like I'm really excited for Super Cops to come out
Yes,
in
Troopers
April.
2, baby. Yeah, yeah, I know you are. I wish I could have been in it. I wanted to be in it, but I was doing a TV series in South Carolina, and I couldn't get there. But yeah, that's their most popular film. That's one that the people, the cults are there, and you know, they raised the money themselves to make it, and you know, they made it the way they want to make it. I'm excited to see it myself.
Yeah, I'm really excited because it's actually 2 days after my birthday. So that's
So it's
probably
already. So when is the release date? When is your birthday? I can do the math.
April 18th.
Okay, April 20th is coming. Okay, all right. So you're a Taurus
That
then.
would be 420.
That would be 420, of
Yes.
course. Thanks. My wife is sitting here listening to this, and she's always quick to pick up. She's a math genius, so she's always quick to pick up numbers like.
The number 42.
Yeah, that's right. She studies the number 42, and so yeah, 420. Of course it is. I think I may have known that, and I just forgot it because I smoke a lot of pot. So I just worked with Jay. I did an episode of a TV show that he directed a couple of months ago, Jay Chandrasekhar. Yeah, I think he told me, I think he mentioned that it was going to come out on 420. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I'll be looking forward to that.
Me too.
And by the way,
Me too.
I say to you, yeah, never trust anybody over 30 was a very popular thing to say when I was a teenager. And I don't know why we said it now. It's been so long ago, but you'll enjoy being 30. It's a good time.
I'm excited for it. You know, a lot of stuff is in the works, so I'm really excited. I'm actually going to be heading to LA in October for a film festival that I submitted one of my screenplays to. So
Is that the festival, the horror festival?
yeah, Shriek Fest.
Shriek Fest, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I had a friend who had a script in there this year, a movie that I'm going to be working on, have been working on, and going to be working on. Yeah, it's a great festival. Great festival, man. Absolutely wonderful.
I'm really excited. Like this is going to be my first trip out to LA, like as an adult. So I'm full on ready to enjoy everything that LA has to offer, especially going to one of
Yeah.
the biggest horror film festivals. So
Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. It's a big fucking deal. You'll have fun, buddy. What's the name of your script?
it's an H.P. Lovecraft script called The Terrible Old Man.
Wow, I think my wife's been writing that script around the house here lately. Or maybe she just calls me a terrible old man. I'm not sure. I know I've heard that somewhere before. Okay, I'm familiar with that. She never said that. She said I'm an awful old man. I think that was the expression. Well, good. Well, good. Maybe we'll actually get to meet face to face when you're out here in October, man.
That would
Can
be
never
awesome.
tell. You know, as they say, man, people make plans and God laughs. Well, you know, I make plans and my agents laugh because the phone rings and I think I'm gonna know what I'm gonna be doing in October, but the phone could ring tomorrow and I'd be off in China in October. Who the fuck knows?
No, but we have to be here October 13th. It's mandatory.
Why? What's that?
Armenian wedding.
Oh yeah, we have a big Armenian wedding to go to on the 13th. So I hope I'll be here in October. Yeah, that's great. So, I forgot where were we? Where were
We just finished talking about
we? We were
Club Dread, and there's
uh,
we could talk about Dukes of Hazard and Beer Fest.
Beer Fest. Wonderful, wonderful experience. I think you know I don't think I'll ever get to play a man of God, but that's as close as I'm going to get. I think probably, as the preacher with the gambling in the basement. That's probably as close as I'll ever get. But working with Cloris Leachman, oh my God, what a wonderful experience that was. You talk about a great broad. Oh my God, she is fucking crazy and wonderful, and that's what that movie was about for me, was getting to work with her. That was really special, really fucking special. Dukes of Hazzard was, it was an amazing experience because if anybody else had directed it, there's no way in hell I would have gotten that part. I mean, it's just too good a part for the likes of me. But the studio wanted me to. They wanted me to try to do what James Best did, and to be that kind of Roscoe. And fortunately for me, Jay Chandrasekhar did not want that, and I was not going to do that. I would have turned the part down if that's what I had to do, because James Best used to teach theater, used to teach acting in Mississippi, at the University of Mississippi, and was one of the most generous people to me that I ever met coming up as a young actor. And I have so much respect for what he did with that character that I would not just try to copy it. That wasn't going to happen. So I decided to I modeled that character on this cop that used to fuck with me when I lived in Mississippi in a small town. And he was this enormous macho asshole who had silver on his boots, big shiny gun, had the biggest pistol, and silver on his cowboy hat, and all this bullshit. And was just an asshole. He was a jerk. He was an asshole. And he didn't like me, and so he fucked with me at every opportunity. And it was a dry county. You couldn't even buy beer or drink beer or possess beer. So he had a lot of opportunities, and he did good work. So, my Roscoe P. Coltrane was an asshole, but it brought me into contact with somebody who would go on to be one of my great friends and an inspiration to me, Burt Reynolds. Oh, my God. Burt Reynolds and Willie Nelson. And I mean, come on, it doesn't get any better than that. You know what I mean? It's like they could have kept the paychecks. Just let me act with these guys.
Right.
And it's a lot of fun in the movie. And I mean, I don't know what to say about it. It was not a big hit, but I was really proud of it. I thought it was a great tribute to the show, the TV show, which I did an episode of the TV show too. So I had all that going in my head, when I was doing it.
Right. I thought the Dukes of Hazzard movie was hysterical, and the fact that the Broken Lizard guys did it, I think made it that much better. Because I really like seeing you play Roscoe. Like I really couldn't picture anyone else of like today playing Roscoe, especially the way you played him. It was fantastic.
Well, I appreciate that, brother. Those are kind words, and I'm gratified, and they land right on my heart in a really good way. It was just it was an amazing experience all the way around. Burt Reynolds, nobody else could have played Boss Hogg. Sorrel Book was long gone and played it, but they were really smart to try to get away from the TV show, because that's where you really screw up on these things, when you try to go back and say, now we're going to do a tribute to the TV show. We're going to make it like the TV show. No. I mean, come on, Johnny Knoxville. Come on, man. He's not like any TV show. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we had so much crazy fun on that thing, because Knoxville, of course, had a big house to stay in while we were doing it, and he had a case of moonshine, and he was out amongst the people, in the bars at night. That's when it's really fun in a movie, is get out amongst the population and have a good time. And he drove a lot of women crazy. There were a lot of women that we shot it in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It was a big college town, as I'm sure are well aware. and the girls were just gaga over fucking Knoxville, and he just walked through it all like the amazing guy that he is, man. He is a true character. Yeah, it's really fun talking to you, Sam, because I'm talking about all this is reminding me of all these great friends, and it's a blessing. My life has been blessed, and really blessed to be in a lot of these movies, because a lot of it is who you get to work with. You know what I mean? There's some people that get into this business and they get cast in one TV show and it runs for 20 years, and that's what they do. They do the show and then they go on vacation during the off time and they work with the same group of people, and hopefully they're a nice group of people, but I've been really blessed to be in a lot of different kinds of movies with a lot of different crazy people, and I enjoy the hell out of them, and we generally always have a really good time. I mean, you know, it just even prison movies. I did a movie called An Innocent Man with Tom Selleck. I don't know if that's on your list or not, but that's a ugly piece of business with about an innocent man who's sent to prison, and we shot it in the Ohio State Penitentiary and the Nevada Penitentiary. And so we spent a lot of time working in prisons with convicts.
That's awesome.
It could have been really depressing if not for the wonderful F. Murray Abraham,
Right.
who played the boss Khan in that, who I wound up being great friends with, who I stay with whenever I go to New York. I stay with him and his wife and his family, and you know, just a prince of a human being, you know, and one of the greatest actors who ever lived. I mean, this guy, I don't know if you ever saw that goddamn Mozart movie, Amadeus, but holy shit.
Yeah. And it's funny.
Wow,
It's funny you say
greatest.
that because you know, they've been playing Last Action Hero on the movie channels, and I always crack up on the line that Austin O'Brien's character says to Arnold, which is, "He killed Mozart. You can't trust him."
Yeah, that is great. That is great. Yeah, but I mean, we had a great time in the prison. Even I mean, like I said, my code is I'm going to have a good time doing this because there's not enough money to pay me to do this if I'm not having fun.
Right.
And I mean, eventually we're going to get around to talking about Quentin Tarantino. I know.
Yes.
Which,
I think that's a perfect segue to talk about Django.
I'll tell you why, because you know, sometimes it's a challenge, you know, because of the character. Generally, I can play at this stage of the game. I've been doing it long enough that I can put a character on like a jacket, and when the day's over, I can take it off, and he's not fucking with me. But Big John Brittles was not that kind of character. He fucked with me. Big John Brittle, the character, fucked with me because of the world he lived in and what he did. And when I went in to meet Quentin, I thought I was reading for that role, and we sat down at the table, and he said, "Oh no, I had you in mind when I wrote this, so you don't really have to read for this. You're going to play this part." And I was a little dumbfounded by that because I had never met him before, and I didn't know if I could believe that he actually had me in mind. And I said, "Really? And why was that?" And he said, "Well, I love that speech you did in Club Dread when you're talking about walking through the jungle with a knife wound after being in fighting drug lords." And I was like, "Holy shit!" Okay. So I said, "Well, Quentin, I would love to play this part, and I'm going to need one prop, the way I see it." And he said, "A whip." And I said, "No, a Bible, a period Bible from the day." And that's when I realized how smart he was, because everybody knows that he knows everything about bad movies. That's what they think they know about him. He's a genius because he knows all these bad movies because he worked in a video store. No, this guy knows a lot of shit about a lot of shit. He got it immediately. He said, "You mean the Dominion Clause?" And I was like, fuck, yeah, that's what I mean. And the Dominion Clause, as you may or may not know, is a bargain that God made with Noah, that after the flood, Noah's children would repopulate the earth, and they would have dominion over all the beasts of the world. And slaves were viewed as beasts. So it was white man's God-given dominion to. Well, this same dominion bullshit was used to justify segregation. When I was growing up in the South, I heard it all the time. The blacks are just beasts of the field. They're just beasts. So that was where I wanted to go. I didn't want to be a guy who was just beat the slaves because he was paid to do it. I wanted to be a guy. God told John Brittle to do that, as he interpreted it from the Bible. And Quentin got it immediately, and we agreed on that he would have the Bible. Now, it was like 4 months later before I ever got to the location. I was doing other things, and that's just the time it took. And when I got there and went to my trailer, my costume was hanging there, and Quentin had them patch the holes in my costume with pages from the Bible.
Huh. That's interesting.
When I got shot, when Jamie shot me, he shot me right through a page from Ecclesiastes. So I was carrying this, God makes me do this. I'm branding them and beating them and doing all these things to them because that's how God wants me to do it. And so that made it, in addition to the fact that we were shooting on a real plantation, not a recreation, and we were shooting in real slave quarters. And if you just sat there, you could feel the misery seep through your bones. And Quentin made all of that fun because of the way he runs his set, the way he makes his movies. The first thing you hear every day when he's approaching the set is him laughing. He's one of the happiest, most joyous people I've ever fucking worked with, and I would never have known that before I worked with him. He has a guy on his set who works with him on every movie. His whole crew almost work with him on every movie, but they schedule their lives so they can work with Quentin. He had a guy whose job was to sit in this little trailer, and the trailer was filled with stereo equipment, and in between shots, when they're moving the gear all around and everything, the music's playing, baby. There's no reason you can't have some rock and roll, no reason why everybody can't be having a good fucking time while they're working. And Quentin is one of the most generous people I've ever been around to his crew and to the extras. We had extras who were slaves working out in the fields 100 yards behind what's going on, and he got them all together and went out and directed them and told them, you're very important. You may be in the background. You're important. So, and he involved them in it. And the last thing I want to say about it is that there's a tradition that happens on a lot of movie sets. It's not a big deal, but it's called $5 Friday. And they have a big jar that one of the production assistants will carry around, and you write your name on a $5 bill and you drop it in the jar. And at the end of the day, somebody will be chosen to pick one out, and whosever name comes out, they get all the money that's in the jar. And it's just something to do on Friday. It's something to, it's just a fun thing that happens on a lot of movies. Not every movie, but on a lot of movies. I've seen it many times. But what I'd never seen was a director dropping $100 bills in the jar without putting his name on them. And I'm watching Quentin dump them in there, and I'm thinking, what a great son of a bitch, because whoever gets this is going to get her. And I mentioned this to Oscar Bob Richardson, the DP who shot that, who shoots his stuff, who's the greatest DP in the fucking world as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you look at Bob Richardson's goddamn IMDb list of movies he shot and all the Quentin stuff and Oliver Stone stuff. I mean, he's the best. I mean, I'm a huge fan. I happen to mention him. That's so fucking cool. He said, you know what? In Kill Bill in China, he put so much money in the jar that the Chinese national crew member who got the money got $4,000.
That's crazy.
And when they asked him, "What are you going to do with the money?" he said, "I'm trying not to cry." He said, "My wife and I can have another child."
That's awesome.
They had to pay the government $4,000 to have a second child in China at that time. So I just started crying and laughing when he told me that, because that means somewhere out there walking around on this planet is a human being, Quentin Tarantino Wong or whatever, who would not be here if not for the generosity of Quentin Tarantino throwing all his per diem in that goddamn jar. That's the kind of guy Quentin Tarantino is.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear because I love his movies and I know we would if I were to meet him and I ever became like a famous screenwriter, we would probably get along just fine because we think alike in terms of like our inspirations and writing styles and all that. But it's just really cool to hear that he's actually a really nice guy and genuine human being too.
An addendum to that point. When he told me that day that I met him about seeing that scene in Club Dread, I fucking went out and got on the car and called J. Chandrasekhar on the phone. I said, Jay, fuck, I got great news for you, man. Quentin Tarantino saw Club Dread. He said, dude, Quentin Tarantino took us under his wing at South by Southwest when we did Super Troopers. Before that, I'm sorry, when they did a movie called Puddle Cruisers. Their first movie. Nobody ever saw it. Quentin saw it. He said he took us around and introduced us to all Linkletter and all these incredible people at South by Southwest. He took us all the way. Quentin's been a huge supporter of ours from the day. So I can assure you, if you met him and he saw your work and knew your work, you would get along with him very well, and he would be very supportive. That's the kind of guy he is. So just let me put that down. And Jamie Foxx, amazing Jamie Foxx to do that character, to play it the way he played it. And I just amazing experience doing Django Unchained, and Quentin Tarantino. I don't know if I'll ever get to work with him again, but I'll tell you what, nothing will ever mean more to me than the spirit that he brings to his crew. And the spirit, because it's about fun for me. Did I mention that, Sam? The Gainey Code. Nothing's going to take away my good time. I'm going to have fun doing this, or else I'm not going to do it. And Quentin makes that really easy, even under the worst of conditions. And the worst of conditions would be the slave quarters in the mud in Louisiana, beating people, even if it's with a suede whip. Okay, even if you just the doing of it, the stripping off the clothes and the beating and just very unpleasant. Very much worse, much more unpleasant than the prison movie, ironically enough. But Quentin made it a beautiful thing for everybody, and we all came away from it saying, "Oh, we did this," and it didn't hurt a bit.
That's so awesome to hear. Um, we are just about out of time, but I would love to have you on the show again. I have two more questions for you that are like my wrap up questions. Um,
Okay, go ahead, my
the
friend.
first one is, what are some of your favorite films? And the second one would be, do you have any up and coming projects you'd like to promote?
My favorite films, just in general, or my favorite, not the ones that I've been in, but
Just in general, like what are some of your all time
my
favorite movies?
oh my God, well, Cool Hand Luke, The Bad and the Beautiful, Casablanca. I'm a big film noir guy, big studio guy. Anything Robert Mitchum was in, anything Lee Marvin was in. I'm one of the sons of Lee Marvin, baby. I mean, one of the great things that has happened to me coming up was to be befriended by character actors. The first movie I ever worked on was I was an extra and a stand-in on a Charles Bronson movie in New Orleans called Hard Times, Walter Hill's first movie, and Strother Martin, who was the warden in Cool Hand Luke, the great Strother Martin, took me under his wing, and he's the one who told me you got to go to California. The first location thing I ever did was with Warren Oates. He took me under his wing. Burt Reynolds did. These guys have been older character guys. Pass it on. We pass it down, man. And so I'm a big studio movie guy, and I see more old movies, and I see them over and over and over again more than I do a lot of new movies. And yeah. And do I have anything going? Yeah, I have a couple of. I've been doing a series of low budget movies lately. The people that can't necessarily pay me a lot of money, but I really dig that. I really dig the energy that young people are bringing to it. And I've got a movie called Shifting Gears that's coming out in March, and another one called Boogeyman Pop, which is a really low budget, radical, fucking twisted movie. And I did a Western called Hyde Park that's going to be coming out sometime soon. So I've been doing a lot of movies that are trying to find markets because, it's hard. I'm sure it's hard to get screens to put independent movies on because everybody wants to see Transformers and Jumanji and Jedi and all those. They suck up all the screens. So I'm really interested in doing a lot of things that are going to struggle to find a screen, but when they do, it's very satisfying. So yeah, I'm still working as much as I want to, and living here in California with an orange tree in my backyard and a pool to dip into when it gets hot. And life is good for me, my friend, and I would gladly talk to you again. And I hope I can hear this. I have a hard time ever knowing when. I don't sit in front of my computer and listen to a lot of podcasts. So if you would shoot me an email and tell me when this is going to play, and I will try to tune into it. It's going to be on the computer, right? I know that's you'll give me an idea of what a Luddite I am, a neo-Luddite. The podcasts are on computers, right?
Yes, you can listen. My channel is on YouTube, so you would just type in the Fishbowl, Fisch, like my last name.
Yeah, I know what the fishbowl on the email. Yeah,
Yeah.
then I can get into because I've only listened to one podcast. I've done a lot. I've only listened to one. It was a Mark Maron podcast that my friend Bill Paxton did about 2 days before he went into the hospital for heart surgery, and. Yeah, so I will listen, and I'll look forward to talking to you again, Sam. And good luck with that screenplay. And you have my cell number. If you ever want to reach me, use that number. I never answered this number. This is a landline that I only use because I have a computer that has to have a landline for it. So you have my cell number. If you ever want to contact me, do it. And I would love to read your script whenever you feel like it's a good time to put it out there. And it's really a pleasure talking to you, Sam.
Well, MC, thank you so much for swimming in the bowl with me. It was a pleasure having you on the show, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
Nice in the bowl. It's nice in this fish bowl. Don't forget to change the water, okay?
I definitely will.
All right, brother. Nice talking to you. I'll talk to you again down the road, God willing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling, Sam. Bye-bye.
Bye.